when following the deaths of a number of workers at the hands of the U.S. military and U.S. Marshals during a Pullman strike, President Grover Cleveland put reconciliation with the labor movement as a top political priority. Fearing further conflict, legislation making Labor Day a national holiday was rushed through Congress unanimously and signed into law a mere 6 days after the end of the strike. The September date was chosen as Cleveland was concerned that aligning an American labor holiday with existing international May Day celebrations would stir up negative emotions linked to the Haymarket affair. That's Labor Day in the US. But I want to take a broader view and explore the concept of labor itself. Probably because of my academic background, I like to look at a topic through the lens of literature and history. So I'm going to review some ways of seeing it and then try to relate it to our UU principles. In the first few chapters of Genesis, we are told how Adam and Eve sinned by disobeying God and were punished. God condemned Adam, that's man, Adam is the Hebrew word for man, to earn his living by the sweat of his brow. And Eve, woman, was subjected to a different kind of hard labor, that of childbirth. For them, labor was punishment, and hard labor has been used as a punishment over the centuries for incarcerated prisoners. Labor as bondage. Labor can connote bondage, as in the case of slavery, where slaves work as hard as they can, but all the fruits of their labors go to their masters. Their labor belongs to their owners, and it's a mark of their servitude. In the case of indentured servants, their labor, while similar to that of slaves, is actually payment for their eventual release, which slaves, of course, can't expect. Labor as fulfillment. More positively, labor can represent fulfillment and satisfaction. In a famous passage from Anna Karenina, the character Levin, who is an aristocrat, decides to spend a day in the fields mowing grain with the peasants. Although unaccustomed to such hard physical labor, he eventually falls into the rhythm of it. Here's a description. The longer Levin went on mowing, the oftener he experienced those moments of oblivion, when his arms no longer seemed to swing the scythe, but the scythe itself, his whole body, so conscious and full of life, and as if by magic, regularly and definitely, without a thought being given to it, the work accomplished itself of its own accord. These were blessed moments. Most of us have probably experienced such moments of satisfaction, not only in the physical sense, but also in the feeling of accomplishment when a difficult task has been completed. A pianist has performed a concerto superbly. A surgeon has successfully transplanted a lung. A supermarket checker has moved items efficiently across the counter, rung them up, and stowed them compactly into bags. A road worker has filled in holes and recreated a smooth surface. A knitter has fabricated a beautiful sweater. A CEO has completed a challenging merger. A homemaker has prepared a delicious meal. Whatever the job is, doing it well produces a sense of fulfillment. Labor as survival. But often labor is just a means of survival. For millions of people on our planet, this is true. They have to work as hard as they can just to be able to get from one day to another. I have a diary kept by my grandparents over a number of years when they owned a farm. Reading it, I was struck by how never-ending their labor had to be. There were always animals to be fed, fields to be plowed, cows to be milked, meals to be cooked, produce to be canned. And then there were the unexpected complications, a broken fence, a sick horse, a storm that flattened the crops. A former colleague of mine, whose parents owned a dairy farm, told me how, until he was in 8th grade and able to take over the chores, his parents never had a single day off. Even if they were so sick they could barely drag themselves out of bed, the cows had to be fed and milked. Labor for these farmers was survival, and they're not the only ones. We all know of people who have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to be able to pay their bills and put food on the table. Labor as vocation. For some fortunate ones, labor is a vocation. A person is called to be a doctor or an artist or a firefighter and works tirelessly toward that end. My mother was one of those. She knew from the time she was 8 years old that she wanted to become a doctor and then a medical missionary. She held to this calling all the way through high school, college, a couple of years off to earn money, and then medical school. She and my father were preparing to go into the mission field when he had an unexpected heart attack and was judged unfit to go. So my mother had a long and successful career as a general practitioner in our small town. She did eventually get her wish to be a medical missionary, however. After my father's death, she and her sister, both in their 70s, went to Kenya and then Pakistan on a mission, and were very successful. Preparation for a vocation may involve scrimping to save money, taking educational courses, doing rigorous physical training, undergoing apprenticeship, practicing, experimenting, failing, sometimes succeeding. The labor is its own reward. It is something the laborer feels a call to do. Not all of us are fortunate enough to have this kind of vocation, so we have to rely on extrinsic rewards like money.